All right, all right, all right. Let me check real quick and make sure that we are live. Sometimes it takes a moment to load up. Okay, we're here. I see us both. Okay, we're doing it. All right, everyone. So come on in, come on in. As you guys see, there are two of us today. I know you guys are used to seeing me on my platform and this sister right here on her platform, and I'm going to introduce her in just a minute. Most of you guys should already know who she is, okay? But today, as I told you guys with my Out of Brokenness series, I really wanted to start to bring people on here because I wanted to get a different perspective, a different mindset, different backgrounds from different people. And the topic that we're going to cover tonight, at least that's our plan. We don't know what the Holy Spirit's going to do, but the topic that we want to cover on tonight is, why do we stay in situations longer than we know we should? Why do we get ourselves into situations that we know we shouldn't? And what does it look like when we come out? What does it look like to get ready to get out of that situation? So we're going to talk about it. So before we jump into it, I want to go ahead and introduce my business partner, Miss Sasha DeBose. Now, she's not very tall, okay, but she does have a very big spirit. All right, I always tease people about their height because I'm tall, okay? But I want to introduce Sasha DeBose. She is reigning out of the Winston-Salem, correct? Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And I've known her for several years. She has a very sweet spirit. And both her and I have gone through a lot of different things individually in our personal lives. And we're going to really just talk about it and be very transparent. Remember, one thing I told you guys is that a part of the healing is being able to be transparent and being accountable. Okay. So Sasha, I want to go ahead and ask a question to you, but first I want you to go ahead and say hello to the people.
Hey everybody, and thank you so much, Derica, for that warm introduction. You know, you my girl. I always say you got to have people around you where you can just pray, just pray. We don't have to talk about nothing. I can just pick up the phone and say, sis, you know, I need a prayer real quick, and we pray together, and we grow together, and we learn together. And so it's been such a joy to have you as my friend and my sister, and I'm so super excited for all of the things that you have accomplished here recently. I got my book ready. As soon as we get off this live, I'm ready to tap into that. So I'm just always proud of you and honored to be on your platform.
Thank you so much. And thank you for supporting my book. It really means a lot. There is no greater feeling than seeing your book in people's hands, seeing your name, your book, your story in someone's hands. And I hope and I pray that it blesses someone and encourages someone. And I hope that it blesses and encourages you as well, too, and lets you know that no matter what you've been through, there is hope at the end of the journey. Okay. So let's go ahead and jump into it. So Sasha, like I told you, we're just going to kind of flow with it, but I want to go ahead and kick it off and just ask you, so in your life, judging and basing off of the things that you have been through in your personal life, and you can divulge whatever you feel comfortable divulging. In your personal life, have you ever found yourself in a situation or situations where you feel like, why am I here? How did I get here? And what do I got to do to get out of it?
Oh, absolutely. I don't even know where to start with that. Yes, several situations I found myself in that position. And I think that a lot of times when you have when you have a big heart and you're a kind-hearted person, you find yourself in those situations, and it's hard to walk away, when you know you should. So yes, several. Where you want me to start, girl?
Girl, whatever you feel comfortable, because like I said, that's your story, and I can't tell no one else's story without their permission. So whatever you feel comfortable telling, then you go ahead and tell it. Because there was a point in time I wouldn't tell none of my story, but now I'm like, I'm gonna tell my story because my story gonna help somebody. So help somebody on today.
There you go. And me too. I tell people all the time, time, you look at my timeline now and you see me speaking on these lives and different things like that. And you're like, dang, she telling it all. There was a time where I would not tell anybody anything. But the point is, I feel like that God is wanting me to be transparent because it can help the next person. Several situations. I know I found myself in several relationships where I knew I needed to leave and I knew I needed to walk away. But you hold on to those things because for one, it has become your normal. We're scared. Like, what if we walk away? What is life going to be like if we leave this situation? What is life going to be like if I leave this relationship? If I leave this job? If I leave this business? If I leave whatever I'm doing currently? If I ditch this friend and I know don't mean me no harm, or I get this person out of my life that I know not supposed to be there? What is life going to be like? And I think that fear sometimes paralyzes us and keeps us bound in situations that we know we need to leave. And so until I realized that fear is false evidence appearing real, I stayed in things way longer than I should have. And when I finally got the courage, I got goosebumps, so I know it's the spirit. When I finally got the courage to walk away from things, to leave things alone, I look back and it's like, dang, I don't even remember. It's been so long. I don't even remember what it was like really to be in that. So why did it take me so long to leave? You know what I mean? And so I just say, remove that fear and do what you got to do for you, because self-preservation is the first law of nature.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So Sasha, I'm gonna have to start peeling back some layers now, right? You ready?
Let's go.
Okay. So my question to you is, I want you to think about one situation that really impacted your life, whether it was a bad relationship, a bad, job, whatever it may have been that really impacted your life. And I want you to tell us what words come to your mind when you think about that situation. So for instance, when I think about, being sexually abused when I was a child, when I think about that now versus when I used to think about it, when I think about it now, I think of gratitude because of the fact that I am still here. I got through it. I was able to peel back the layers and get to the root of all of that junk that I was carrying, the filter process for those who's been following me. But before I went through peeling back the layers, when I thought about it, shame was what came to mind. Depression was what came to mind. I wanted to hide is what came to mind. Guilt. I felt like there was something I had done to warrant or deserve that. Okay. Anger, sadness, all those types of things came to mind. So when you think about that one situation, whatever it may be, because I don't know your whole story. Okay. So when you think about that one situation, what are the words that come to mind? And do you consider yourself healed, or do you still consider yourself in the process of peeling back the layers?
I would say definitely shame. I would say in the beginning, shame, hurt, pain, all of those things. But I look at it as like, how you drop your mama's favorite vase and it's in all of these pieces, and then you pick it up and you glue it all back together. And so when I think of myself in a couple situations, I think of it as that beautiful porcelain put back together. And that's why I named my series Dolls Never Broken. Because, we break, we bend, but we find a way as queens, and in growing and in learning and in getting the wise counsel, which is from the Bible, from God, for me. We find a way to put ourselves back together, and we realize that all of those things were meant, and nothing happened to us, but everything happens for us. So for me, it was a lot of pain. It was a lot of shame. And for me, that's another reason why I stayed in those situations, because it's like, well, dang, if I walk away, nobody's they're gonna think that I failed. If I walk away, they're gonna think that, all what they're gonna think. And when I realized that it doesn't matter what people think, you're really, on the outside, it looks like you're striving, but on the inside, you're really like, miserable for real. And when I came to that realization, I realized it's time to go.
Right. So talk about that a little bit, Sasha, because I think we've all been in this situation where it's like we put on this facade that everything is good and we are the package put together and we have the bright shiny bow on and we're polished and everything is looking good. But then I feel like, let me see if I can describe it according to how I'm seeing it in my vision right now. So a person who is really dealing with, say, they're dealing with stress and they're dealing with depression. Okay. So they have to get up and they have to go to a physical job and clock in. Okay. And be around coworkers and smile and talk to customers and different things like that. So they're doing that, right? And then they'll get up and they may disappear for a moment and nobody knows, but they're in the bathroom and they're crying and they got their head buried in between their legs in the stall and they're begging God to give them strength to get themselves together and go back out there to their job or their cubicle or whatever they have to go. And I don't know if you've ever done this, but it's always that stop, especially for us women. There's always that stop in the bathroom mirror where you have to look at yourself and you have to coach yourself and say, okay, come on, Derica, you got this. Let's do this. You only got so many more hours to pretend. Because that's really what it is. You only got so many more hours to pretend, and then you can get in your car, and but then at the end of the day, when you clock out and you get ready to get in your car, but now you're still in pretend mode because you don't want nobody to see what you got going on inside your car. So in actuality, you may be crying and praying out to God, but you're going to pretend like you on the phone because you're too worried about what people driving next to you, even though you don't know them and may never see them again. You still worried about what they may be thinking. Then you get home, sis. Then you get home and now you got kids, right? Now maybe you got a spouse. I don't know. Now you got to get home. You got to make sure the kids is good, pick them up from school, help them with their homework, fix dinner, be a wife to the spouse or whatever the situation is. At what point do you stop and you say, I cannot continue to go down this road? I can't continue to go down this road because if I continue to go down this road, I'm going to be hurting myself. I'm going to be hurting my children. I'm going to be hurting my spouse. I'm going to be hurting everyone. I'm going to implode instead of explode. At what point do you say, I can't do this anymore?
Yeah.
What does that place look like? Like, what was the deciding factor for you to say, you know what, I can't do this anymore?
Well, before I get to the deciding factor, I know what that's like all too well. And, when we met a couple years back, we were in a different opportunity in business and everything. And I remember getting on the stages and taking the pictures and to the eye, people would think, dang, she really doing it. I want her life. Like, but in reality, I was still in that broken relationship. I was still, I remember getting off the stage and going back to the phone and dealing with the yelling in the phone and all of this type of stuff, and having to wipe the tears, hoping I didn't mess up the makeup and go back on stage to accept awards and different things like that. And so for me, I think I've done that all my life, though. You know what I mean? Like even in childhood and all of these different things, you try to cover up things and hide so that people don't know what's really going on, and people think everything is all peaches and all good and everything like that. And so it went from childhood to losing my father at 17 to getting in bad relationships with men to try to find that love that I got from my father and my mom, and different things like that. And then from leaving those situations to now losing family members 3 in 1 year, and dealing with that at the same time while being in this toxic relationship. At the same time, managing the the appearance, managing being, who you need to be in your career, and all these different things. Being a successful woman in the industry that we're in, while dealing with all of these things at one time. And so in dressing it up and putting on the heels and the makeup and the smiles and hugging people and you smiling, everybody thinking, oh my gosh, I really want her life. And then you going back off stage and crying. And doing that for so long, I remember my cousin passed and picking his body up and cleaning his house out. And then the next day doing a home party, did a home party the day before he passed, the day after. And all of these things. And it's just like, it just came crashing down on me at one time, to the point where you can only pretend for so long. And at some point, it's going to catch up with you. And a lot of times we don't have these talks, and we don't know God like we should, and different things like that. And so we're carrying all of this stuff, and we're trying to be all of these things, that we're being pulled in all of these different directions. And so for me, what happened was I sat still. And when I sat still, sis, when I got in that quiet place by myself, when the cameras was off, and when everything stopped moving, all the family members were gone. All I have now is my kids, my brother, sister, and my mom. And I'm in this quiet place, and I'm like, dang. I just realized everything that I had been masking and not dealing with just came to me all at once, crashing down. And I found myself in a fetal position. I found myself in a depression. I found myself like gaining weight back. I found myself like just really like going downhill, depressed. And I said, enough is enough. At the end of the day, God didn't create us to be sad and depressed and going through it. I know what God has for me. And so for me, I just start praying to God, and I start asking, what is it that you want me to see? Why did you take me through all these situations? What was it that I was supposed to gain from this? What do I need to do to please you so that I can get to where I'm meant to be? And once I did that, everything started coming together. So for me, just getting in that depression and hitting rock bottom, that was my deciding factor. And what pulled me out was not trying to do it myself any longer, or mask it, or keep going, or keep busy, but depending on God to tell me what it is that I was supposed to gain from those things. And then I was able to look back and smile at them, and I was able to pull myself on out.
Right. And thank you so much for sharing. I mean, I can only imagine losing someone and still having enough strength in you to be able to put yourself together and still throw those parties. And, it shows how we as women, how we travail and how we prevail and how we can put on that mask, because I think for so long we all women, for multiple generations, we've been taught that we are super women and we have to do everything. And I believe that we really have to kind of correct that thought process, because we're not super women. Okay. We're not super women. We don't have a cape. We don't fly. Okay. Unless we're in a plane. Okay. But I think with that mindset of, I am a superwoman and I have to do anything, it sounds heroic, because everybody wants to be a hero. It sounds like, oh, that's the bomb, she's got it all together. But I think that's how a lot of times we end up setting ourselves up for downfall, is because we're taking on too many roles. And when we take on too many roles and we put too much on our plate and we try to wear too many hats, we end up dissolving ourselves. And so we have to get to the point where we have to understand that the thing that we think we're not strong enough to deal with, we already are doing it, because it takes strength to be able to carry all of that stuff. Yep. All of that junk that we have been carrying for all of our life, it takes strength. And I think a lot of times, social media, society will try to paint the picture that if you are dealing with these types of things, and that actually is evident of you being weak. Okay. But I feel like every day that you wake up, and every day that you decide to start again, and every day that you open your eyes and you take your breath, and you're able to even pull yourself out and put on that mask and do the things that you really don't have the strength for, on autopilot, most of us, right? We do it on autopilot. That's strength. That's strength.
Yeah.
There, you know, and as a mother, I know you can relate. There are some things harder, but they're one of the hardest things. Let me put it that way. One of the hardest things to do as a mother is try to pull yourself together and make your children think that everything is okay. When
Yeah.
inside you are literally feeling like you just want to just die.
Yeah.
To just
Yeah.
die. And I know, you know, a lot of times, you know, I've told you before, we all have our different coping mechanisms and we all have our different vices that we use. And
Mm-hmm.
so, you know, for me, I went through a lot of different things and, you know, I went through different stages and I know you went through different stages. For me, one of the stages, you know, I tried the drinking thing. I never worked out well for me.
Yeah.
I just was not a successful alcoholic. It just didn't work for me. So, you
Praise
know,
God.
it never worked out. It never worked out. You know, for me, the consequence of it, it just didn't work out for me. So for me, there was other things that I would try, you know, and then I would put my body in the situation because I'm looking for some sort of peace, some sort of feel good, even if it's just for a moment, even if it's a situation that I know afterwards I'm going to feel guilty about, I'm going to feel dirty about, I'm going to feel shame about. But also understanding too that it started it started for me, and I don't know when it started for you, but it started for me from that young age.
Yeah.
And in that situation, I began to process that those types of situations would give me the attention that I so desperately was seeking. I
Mm-hmm.
was so desperately seeking that. And I know that when I had my children, I swore up and down. I swore up and down that, you know, I wasn't going to do this. I wasn't going to do that. I wasn't going to let this happen. I wasn't going. And it's like, how do you get through? Someone asked a question. How do you get past the fear?
Yeah. I was going to
Because
address that too.
the fear can really stop you in your tracks. I talked earlier about fight, flight, or freeze. We often talk about the fight or flight, but we don't always talk about the freeze. A lot of times people freeze.
Mm-hmm. I
And you know I've experienced that. Have you experienced that?
Absolutely. I know. I think that the freeze for me was the fetal position. It was
Mhm.
depression. It was,
Mhm.
okay, so I'm running, I'm doing this. I'm telling you, sis, I would go to work from 8 to 6. I would come home, change into my business attire, do my deliveries, go back to one of my team members' house, host a party, leave that party, go back home, get my kids, jump into bed, get up, do it all over again. And so for me, it was the fight. Like maybe if I ignore what's happening, it won't affect me. You know what I mean? And then,
That's a powerful one right there. Ignoring that's something that we do. Why do we do that?
you know what I mean? Like it's still happening. And so I think that that's a vice too. Staying busy, overworking. It can be just as detrimental as alcohol or drugs or anything else. And so after doing that and that didn't work, it's like here I am, pain. You remember me? I'm still here. You know what I mean? Then that's when it all hit me, and I'm like, okay, now I'm in the freeze. Now I'm not doing anything. And so then I realized you can't live like this. Your kids know this. You're not hiding anything. You know what I mean? And so to answer Danielle, she said, what did you do to remove the fear? It wasn't necessarily anything that I did. I remember feeling so weak. And I remember saying to myself, especially after the situation where I didn't know where my son was at for 3 days, I remember feeling so weak. And I was like, you know what? I don't like this feeling. I don't like this fear is taking over me, and I know that I'm far from weak. And so at the end of the day, God if you get me out of this, I promise you, like, there's nothing else that can break me down. There's nothing else that can take me out. And so I just asked God to remove the fear. And I asked God, I remember asking God, and I heard a pastor say, command a better version of me to come forward. Like you commanded Peter to come out on that water, command a better version of myself to come forward, because I know that I'm far from weak. And I remember praying on my knees, praying that prayer every single day. And eventually that fear began to come up off of me. And even though I was deep down in it, I was still going to get it, and got back out, got back in, back into doing what I was doing. And everything just started lining up, even though it didn't look like it was lining up right away. By me removing that fear and gaining that faith, everything started coming back together.
Wow. So I know that the enemy, and I want to name 10 ways. I know that the enemy really tries to attack us and strategize against us, because I think that, I know that, from the day we're born, him and his goons, they together trying to figure out a strategy on how to stop us from being able to reach our destiny, our purpose, our calling. And I feel like the greater issues that you end up having in life, the more anointing, the more oil you have on you. And so, the enemy is going to try to stop you through your passion. Okay, through your passion, whether it's your passion for what you want to do in life, or your passion for God, your passion for developing a healthy relationship with yourself, with your family, with your children. He's going to try to strategize against your focus. Okay, because he wants to keep you off focus. So if he can keep you distracted by putting distractions in your life that cause you to freeze, that cause you to stay in that fear, that cause you to hide, that cause you to run, right? That cause you to get angry and get defensive and all those things, then he can take your focus. He also wants to get you with your identity. Okay, so if he can get you with your identity, then it's like, oh man, she don't even know who she is and who she is. Because I think it's and the more that I've been in conversation with different people, the more I'm really understanding that is a very, very significant strategy that the enemy tries to use, is by messing with someone's identity. Because when you go through life not authentically knowing who you are and whose you are, you will fall for anything. You will fall for anything. And that means that now you've put yourself in an open situation. So now people are able to come. And I think for a long time, I didn't really realize that people are able to see what you don't see. Like people can say to you, Sasha, you have power, you have a gift, you are this, you are that. But if you don't see that, then it's going to be hard for you to be able to have that type of relationship with them. However, if it's with someone who does see that and say they're not a good person, okay, they will try to manipulate that. They'll take advantage of that. Okay, they will exploit that. And so it's very important that we start to recognize that we have to know who we are quickly. We have to get to know who we are quickly.
And we have to see the patterns. You said a lot, but that's what it was. That really was what it was when the devil kept trying. And so for me, I've always been that nice, sweet girl and stuff like that. So I always got tried, especially when I was, young and going through trying to find my way in the streets and stuff like that. And I didn't like that. I did not like getting tried. And so I would fight, you know what I mean? And so when this last situation occurred, and the situation I was describing, when I was just on my knees praying to God, I was just like, you know what? Okay, devil. I got mad at him. Like, okay, you keep throwing this thing, that thing, this thing, and you keep using the same people, the same things, the same type of situation, to try to take me down. And so I got mad at the enemy. And so sometimes that's what we got to do. We got to notice the patterns. We got to get mad at the enemy, rebuke that thing, and then just start asking God, let I rebuke him in the name of Jesus. Let him get his hands up off of me. You know what I mean? And that's what, for me, that was the shift.
Amen. And so The other ways that, I want you to touch on as well too is family. If he can attack our family,
Mm,
that really gets us off the mark. It really gets us off the mark. I mean, I don't know about you, but you coming from my children, they're going this. It's a different. It's different. You know what I mean? It's a different response. It's a different reaction. Because those I carry them in my womb. You know what I mean? And things like that. And I mean, I don't even have to carry a child. I mean, I have Michaela, right? And I love her like she's my own, even though she's not. But I still love her like she is. And then we have confidence. It is very, very crucial. Identity, all of them are important, but if he can affect your confidence, that's really going to get you in places, saying things, doing things that you are better than, you are bigger than that.
yeah.
So what situations do you think that you've been in, or what would you have to say about family and confidence?
Girl, whew. That family, and like I was saying, he always uses the same things to try to get in there. And then when you overcome all of that, he'll go back to that one thing that he know gonna take you all the way down. And that for me, that was my kids, or coming from my brother and sister. A lot of times, even if it wasn't in my direct household, my mom's is just as near and dear to my heart, so he would know what to do. And so I had to, and I tell everybody this: if resist the devil and he will flee.
Mhm.
And so as long as I was letting it work, as long as I was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing in this situation? Oh my God, so miserable and weak. And then when I turned that from being miserable and weak and wondering what I'm gonna do, to saying, I know what you're doing, I see you, but God is greater, and really praying and having faith that those things were going to go away. It stopped, and it's like, resist the devil and he will flee.
And I
um,
think a lot of times too, Sasha, we have to be careful where our focus is, because he does try to mess up our focus, but if he can take our focus and put it on our family and not on God, then I think a lot of times we could be setting ourselves up to let him basically know this is an area that, if you hit me here, boy, you know what I mean? But we
yeah,
have to also remember too that God is still in control.
yeah,
And God says, okay, well, you can do this and this, but you can't do this. You see
yeah,
what I'm saying? And so I think a lot of times, I know for me, when you're in the midst of that, you tend to forget God's promises. You tend to forget what he says. And I
mhm,
think it's important to remember every single day. And it's become a habit now for me, whereas before it wasn't, why I felt I was so susceptible, because I didn't have that strong foundation with God as I should have. Mine wasn't deep, it was surface deep, but it
yeah,
wasn't rooted deep. You see what I'm
yeah,
saying? I thought it was because I grew up in church. But when you grow up in church, it's like, okay, you're there because your parents are there. But when you become an adult, eventually when you get in trouble, okay, eventually where your help comes from. Okay, cool. But you have to, as an adult, develop your own personal relationship with God. And so if you don't have that, and if you're not in the word, you're missing those key components that's going to help you to be able to say, I know what you're doing. I know what you're doing, and not today, and not today. So, I have a couple more here. We talked about confidence and family, identity, focus, and passion, but he also tries to mess with our calling, our
mm,
purity, and our contentment,
mm,
peace.
hmm. Let me just touch on confidence too. um I think that, like, a lot of times, because I know there's somebody on this live that might be going through it right now, and you're wondering why the devil keeps attacking you. And so for me, after going through situation, I used to know before those situations who exactly I was. After going through situation after situation after situation, and coming and being in that fetal position for so long, and then coming out of it, when I was coming out of it, it was like, am I crazy? Like, what is happening? Like, I began to not even know who I was. I was looking in the mirror and forgetting who I used to be or who I was. And it wasn't that I needed to be who I used to be. It's that I was getting closer to who I was meant to be. But in that process, after all of those situations, I began to not notice myself any longer. And so that begins to weigh on your confidence. And so everything that the devil is doing was designed to like you said, to destroy you, to kill and destroy and to take you all the way down. But once, like you said, the key was to get in the word. I remember opening the Bible and I was saying, man, the very thing that I read was the very thing that I was going through. And it was nothing but the spirit. And so using that guideline and using that outline and getting in the word, I began to gain a new confidence. I began to gain a new posture. And I began to become a new person. And so that's how I was able to overcome that. But yeah, he'll come for your confidence too.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I feel like all of these things, you can be at a point where you can experience multiple attacks in different areas. And he loves to get us to a point where we feel like we are so bound and so restricted that we can't even move.
Yeah.
And that's where we find ourselves in those fetal positions and doing things that is out of our character. And it's like, but is it really out of our character if we don't even know who we are?
Come on.
You know what I mean? Like, I had to have a long talk with God, and even with myself, not like, hey girl, how are you? Oh, I'm doing good. Not like that. But I'm just saying, you know what I mean? It's just like, who are you right now?
Who are you right now?
Yeah. And I would find myself in the midst of those types of situations, sitting on the floor. Okay. I'll give you a perfect situation. There was one time, and I'm being very transparent is very important to me. And so I can't sit here and act like, nothing's ever happened to me and I'm good.
Yeah.
That's not what I feel has helped me. You
Yeah.
see what I'm saying? So when I say things like, I remember that I was drinking too much, trying to cope some problems. And I ended up getting a really, really bad hangover. I mean, I was sick for days. And I remember laying there on the bathroom floor, hugging the toilet. And I said to myself, who are you right now? Like, this ain't even you. And I really, at that point, I was like, what in the world are you doing? What has happened that has brought you to this point where you keep trying to find these mechanisms, these things, these people, these places to try to coat and numb this pain that you're feeling? And that's when it really hit me, when I said, you know what? I'm not doing the healing because I'm scared of what's going to happen when I start peeling back the layers. I'm scared of the pain.
Yeah.
But then I had to ask myself, girl, you already hurting.
Come on, sis.
They say hurt people, but hurt people hurt themselves too.
Yes.
They hurt themselves too. And it's like, they say don't grieve the Holy Spirit. And it's like, don't grieve the Holy Spirit was something that I felt like I just kept doing. You know what I mean? I'm like, Derica, it's time to get it together, sis. Like, sometimes we have to have those conversations with ourselves. It's time to get it together. Right. Like, what you're doing right now, it's no longer working. It's no longer serving its purpose. It's not good for you. You keep going back to the same situation. It's like going back to your vomit. A dog going back to the vomit. Like, why you keep going back to the vomit? It's time for you to get up, take a shower, get yourself, block some numbers. Okay. Maybe you need to change your number. Okay. Maybe you even need to change your address. Okay. Yeah. It's time to do that. And it's like, I had to start really doing that work and really start getting to a point where I had to learn and go deep into the research of how to break through those soul ties, because those soul ties kept bringing me right back to my vomit, right back to it. I didn't know how to break free from that. Is that something that you have ever experienced or can comment on?
Girl, them soul ties is powerful. And you said something that I really resonate with. You said hurt people. And so a lot of times, we talk about the law of attraction and all of this type of stuff. But a lot of times we're scared to look in the mirror. I was reading John C. Maxwell, Winning with People, and he talked about the mirror image. And so a lot of times the very thing that we don't like in other people is something that we don't like about ourselves deep down inside. And so what'll happen is miserable people, they don't, not misery loves company. Misery loves miserable company. And so what'll happen is we'll start attracting people that are just like us or that are going through it just like us. We'll think it be the most powerful people and they be just as hurt deep down inside as us and stuff like that. And so now we find ourselves in these situations with people that are hurt like us, and now we hurt them and they hurting us, and it's just a revolving door. And so you look up and you like, dang, what is going on? Why am I in all these situations? But like you said, we're hurting ourselves. We're putting ourselves in these situations.
So I think that's very powerful. What you said, that's very powerful. When you started peeling back the layers, did you feel like God was calling you to a point of solitude? To a point of isolation where he wanted to just kind of like you and just you and God, just you and God.
Yeah.
Did you experience that?
Absolutely. I think I'm experiencing that now. Actually, like I'm in that place now. It's like, now that I see what's going on, I got the blueprint now. I see what the devil was doing. I know that God is the only person that can heal me. I know that God is the only person that can give me, people always say, what are your goals? And everybody say 500,000 a month or their income goals. For me, my goal has always been peace. I want peace. That's my ultimate goal. And so I in talking to God and then getting closer to him and then reading the word, I know that I have to go through a period of isolation. You have to protect when you're trying to get that peace and you're trying to get to that next level. You have to protect what's in your ear gate. You have to protect what's coming out of your mouth, because you can attract. I mean, you were talking about this earlier. You can attract the things that you don't want. You can, we look up and we think that we're at a certain place, that we've grown so much, and then we, something will happen, it'll bring you back to reality. Like, I got a little bit more work to do, but I can't do that in the midst of everything and everybody. I have to isolate I think that God is isolating me right now.
Yeah, God will isolate you. We can isolate ourselves, but I think it's different when God isolates you.
Yeah. And you wonder why. You like, dang, she stabbed me in the back. She ain't my friend no more. And this person did that, and he cheated on me, and he done went and got a new baby and all this, that, and the third. And you wondering why everybody's dropping out your life. That's God isolating you.
God will definitely isolate you, whether you like it or not. And there was times when he isolated me, and I didn't necessarily think I wanted to be isolated, because I was so used to my cycle and my patterns, right? Yeah. My patterns was to, fill myself with, I need someone to talk to. I need someone to be around me. I don't want to be alone. Mm-hmm. Now, the situation I'm in right now is like, are you going to disrupt my peace? Are you going to affect my focus?
Yeah.
Are you going to distract me? Are you going to set me back?
Yeah.
If the answers to those questions are yes, then we can't have this conversation. You see what I'm saying? And the enemy will always try to come and remind you of who you once were. And he'll come and try to test you while you're in that point of isolation or solitude. He will always come and try you and test you and see. Let's see though. Yeah, you say that but let's see if you really, really learn. You see what I'm saying? And
we'll use the same patterns and a lot of times it might be that something that you do feel wronged or whatever or what have you. But at the end of the day, it's him doing that, and it's not the people, it's not the person that you think hurt you and all of this type of stuff. It's him doing that to try to distract you. That's all it is. Coming for your focus.
Right. I think the biggest thing that I would definitely take away and say was a big game changer for me was accountability. That was the biggest game changer for me, because see, here's the thing. I used to say, okay, well, in a bad relationship, okay, well, he did this to me and, he hurt me in these ways and things like that. But he really didn't do that to me. I actually did it to myself. It actually was my fault because I had no business being with him in the first place.
There we go.
I had no business being with him in the first place. So when someone says to you, well, you ain't never going to be nothing without me. You know what I mean? If I leave up out of here, them times when you shacking up, you ain't supposed to be.
Yeah.
And you done had enough. You got to go. You got to go. No, we ain't doing this no more. Okay, well, how you gonna pay these bills? Okay, how you gonna do this? How you gonna you ain't gonna be able to do nothing without me. But then God comes through. Okay. And he shows up and he shows out. And we can't sit here and deny. There's a part of us that's like, God, look at God show out for me. But it's true though. You're right. I won't be anything as long as I'm with you. You're so right. As long as I stay with you, I won't be anything because God is not going to give me the blessings and he's not going to give me the destiny. He's not going to open up my calling and set me on the right path as long as I'm with you. Because when he created me, when it says he knew the plans he had for me before he formed me in my mother's womb, you were not going to be in part of that story. Your season is done. You shouldn't even been here. It's summer. It's summer now, and you winter. You're supposed to be gone. Yeah. That cycle is over. And so I think a lot of times we have to get to the point where we recognize that, you know what? I have to say, is this situation bettering me? Is this situation helping me? Is this situation disrupting me, distracting me? Is this situation causing me to go backwards? And if it is, then maybe it's time for us to say, you know what, God, if this is not for me, this is what I used to say, God, is this not for me? Show me. Yes. And I think sometimes God is saying, I was showing you from the beginning.
Yes.
But you didn't want to see it. You refused to listen. So I think accountability for me, I don't know what it was for you, but for me, accountability was the biggest game changer for me because I no longer am looking for someone to say, well, you did that to me. Mm-hmm. I don't even care anymore because it doesn't matter. Because for me to have someone to blame, it doesn't make me feel better. It doesn't stop it from have happened. So for me, it's accountability. What about you?
Same. It's definitely accountability. And I think that's one thing that that's part of maturity. It's part of growth. And a lot of times we're too immature, even in our spirituality, to take accountability and to realize that we have a part in everything that happens to us and everything. Yes, it's the devil and all of that, but we have to take accountability. And so for me, instead of looking at it as a man or a person, a friend or whatever, I had to look at it as a whole. For me, it's Satan. And so when I began to get mad at the opposition, and I began to realize, like, okay, what is my part in this? And not only what is my part in this, but how can I remove this from my life? That's when everything started changing.
Wow. I totally agree. I think that makes all the more difference, is I found that when you're able to be transparent with God, because he already knows, but when you're able to be transparent with God, it's easier to be transparent with yourself. And when you're transparent with yourself, it's easier for you to be transparent with other people. Yeah. And so I feel like it was a process to be able to get to that point where you feel like, okay, you know what, you take me or you leave me. But at the end of the day, I woke up Derica Frazier and I'm going to go to sleep Derica Frazier. I'm not going to lose any sleep. I'm not going to let you or give you the power to affect me. And I feel like when we start to recognize that and think from that mindset, we stop giving the enemy so much credit too. Yeah. Because I think sometimes we give him more credit than he actually deserves. Sometimes it's not him. Sometimes it's just us.
And I think I've said his name. I think I've said his name on this live more than I have in months or years. I try not to do that because that's just giving them what it like. No, I don't even recognize you.
Yeah, exactly. So Sasha, kind of wrapping up because I want to try to keep it at an hour here. We got about 5 minutes, but wrapping it up. I know that the title technically was "Why Do We Stay?" So long when we know we should go. What would you say to someone who was ready to change, ready to get out that situation, but not exactly sure if they can or how to do it?
For one, you have to be ready to change. Because a lot of times we'll say we want out of the situation, we'll say we want better, we'll say we want to change, but in reality, we're comfortable. In reality, we really don't want to change. And so for me, that was the first thing is really looking in the mirror and saying, do I really want out of this? Do I really want change? Do I really want this, to see what I could look like polished and in a better, refined me? And that was the first thing. And then secondly is, just trusting in God, removing that fear and walking in faith and just knowing that, looking at what life could be like if you were to change and to get out of that situation.
Wow, that's powerful. I love that. So, I think at the end of the day, we have to make a decision that we're willing to put forth the effort towards our own healing because we're worth it. We have to remind ourselves that we're worth it. And just like we teach in business, no more excuses, we have to teach it in our personal life too. There's no more excuses. There's no more excuses because when we start breaking the cycle and we start stepping outside of that bubble and start to stretch our comfort zone, okay, maybe we can't come right out the comfort zone, but maybe we need to stretch it a little bit, okay? Maybe we need to add some other things, and just stretch it just a little bit. And then eventually we start tearing out of it. And then you get to a point where instead of you fighting to stay in your comfort zone, now you're fighting to go back in it. You're fighting to stay out of it, shall I say. And I feel like that is a point where you can look back and say, wow, I'm really growing. Like you said, I'm really maturing and not just maturing in spirit, but also maturing in love for yourself. Maturing in love for yourself. And I know a lot of times people think, when you hear the word self-love, it sounds so cliche, but it's hard to love yourself. If you've been in a series of bad relationships and you don't know what that kind of good love, that healthy love looks like or feels like, it's hard to even give it to yourself because you don't even know how to accept what God is trying to give you because you don't know what that looks like, especially when you feel like, as a woman, most of the men in my life have upset, disappointed, betrayed, all those types of things, so how do you work through that? So I think we have some good food for thought. I think accountability and summary is very, very important, and just really being true to yourself, true to your God self. Not your flesh self, but true to your God self, because that's what gets us in trouble is trying to be true to our flesh self.
Yeah, for sure. And I will say too, once you come out, it's a beautiful thing. I know for me, even, and we have times where Satan try to pull us back in and all of it, or we allow ourselves to get pulled back in and all these different things. But once out, like even for me, this last year it's been such eye opening. It's like such more peace. It's like, man, that's what was happening the whole time. I stayed there that long and I went through and I was going, and I was a totally different person that I didn't have to be because we put ourselves through those things. You know what I mean? And so once I came out, it was so beautiful. It was so peaceful. So there is another side. I always remember that there is another side.
Absolutely. Well, Sasha, I'm not going to keep you any longer. I definitely appreciate you jumping on here and sharing, some of your trials, some of your testimonies, some of your victories and things like that. And I definitely pray that you continue to have victory and continue to allow God to peel back those layers as I am doing as well too. And I hope that for everyone watching now or to watch later, that something we said on tonight will definitely help you out and just kind of even if it's just to start the thought process that, maybe I need to make some changes in life. Maybe I do need to take another look at who I really am, and am I out of character? And I appreciate you, and I thank you. I know you got a lot of stuff going on, but I knew that this would be a good topic for us to come together on and talk about. So you guys, thank you so much for watching. We're going to go ahead and close out. And I really pray that, you guys have a wonderful evening. For those of you guys that are growing with Stanicia, then I will see you guys on Zoom here in about an hour or so. And I look forward to growing in our faith and increasing our mindset and leveling up and just becoming the best version of ourselves. All right. So you guys have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.